Disasters have become part of every company and business's operating planning. Disasters come in a lot of different forms. They come in the form of tornadoes, earthquakes, hurricanes, flooding, cyber attacks, terrorism. We've seen a number of things develop over the years, and this past winter in 2016 we had snow and ice that impacted the areas. But disasters are part of every organization's planning. It's going to happen. These are bound to happen every year, okay? Well, what they lead to is a response. And the response is important. People have to know what to do. They have to know where to go. And the responding part of this is critical to the disasters getting addressed fast. So part of the response is knowing things ahead of time for a notice event, like a hurricane or a weather pattern coming in, or a no-notice event, like a train wreck or other things that happen. So the response is critical. The faster someone can be ahead of the disaster, the faster they can respond, the better. Well, in order to have a response, you've got to be able to do three things. You've got to be able to communicate effectively, getting reliable information from reliable sources to decision makers. They have to decide quickly, and then they have to coordinate. Okay? So if you look at these two pieces right here, on the response side, you've got the federal government, you've got the state government, and you've got the local governments, and they all activate their plans. And over here you have the private sector, you have nonprofits, you've got trade associations, you've got a number of people that need to coordinate and communicate in order to respond. Because otherwise what you have is you have chaos, okay? And part of that's, you can't get rid of that. That's just part of when you have a lot of cooks in the kitchen. However, if you can communicate, decide, and coordinate faster, then what you can do is move to the next stage, is respond better, then you can recover. And the whole thing about here is speed. How do we do all of this faster? Because the idea here is the faster we can recover, we can get our businesses back to business, we can get communities back to normal operation, power's on, gas stations open, access to food, shelter, things like that. The faster this process can happen is the most important thing. So how do we speed these things up quickly? So to coordinate and communicate effectively during a response, you have to understand the big picture. So step one is each state is its own state. They have their own laws, their own governance, and the local cities and counties within those states work very closely on a day-to-day basis. That's not going to change. The Constitution sets that up, and each state is autonomous and has to work that way. Okay? Same with the federal agencies. The way they're established is they're budgeted and governed to work as independent groups, if you will. They might have regional offices like that, but at the end of the day, in blue sky mode, they all have their footprint, they all have their roles, and so how they function on a day-to-day basis is already governed and set out. Then you have the private sector. You have some companies that are small, they go and operate in one state. Some are medium-sized, they do multiple states, 5, 6, 8 states, whatever is a region. Then you got your larger organizations, which may cover nationwide, or they might cover half the country, or they're broken down into regions, they cover the whole thing. And then you've got your supply chain, the people that supply goods and services to those companies of all sizes, to the public, to the state populations. And so this process happens every day. You need to understand before you move forward, how do you coordinate those? You have to understand the layout. So how do you get these, if you will, silos of people and process to work together during a big event? So the All Hazards Consortium was established to operate right here in the middle, at the regional, multi-state level. Why? Because the states that started the All Hazards Consortium realized their challenge was how to coordinate state to state. And so during the first formative years of the organization, they worked at this regional level, multi-state coordination and communication. Now you bring in the private sector. Okay, the private sector operates at the regional level. All the supply chains are regional and national, and so they have to tie into this as well during a big event. So it's this regional, multi-state arena that the All Hazards Consortium was created, and why it functions here is to support multiple states, but really the private sector, and we'll show you how in just a second. So in 2012, following Hurricane Sandy, the private sector, electric, telecom, food, and fuel, approached the states of the All Hazards Consortium and said, we want to better coordinate and plan with government, specifically state and local government. The federal government was good, but they don't control the roads and the passages and things like that. So what we want to do is they wanted to set up this. So the first thing they did was, the most important thing was, there was a lack of trust. When you're dealing with companies and states, there's always been a trust barrier there, okay? Not everywhere, but many times. So the first thing they decided to do is, okay, we need to set up a trust framework. And that framework needed to be able to create a legal, a technical, a policy, and a process where public and private entities could come together and have trusted conversations, build and expand a network of trusted people in order to address specific operational issues. So once this trust framework is developed, then what do the users need in that framework? Well, the first thing they all commented about, the private sector said, you know, we need to know the people in government that we need to work with on a day-to-day basis. Not the media people, not the non-operational people. Same with government. Government wanted to know who they could talk with over here, and how do we link operations people together this way. And today that can vary based on the sector. Sometimes the operational folks here don't really work with the operational folks there, but through this trust framework we've established, with the public and private sector participation, access to people, professional operational people in a trusted environment. Secondly, they wanted to look at how do we begin planning together, exercising together, and doing joint education. This is really important during the blue sky days. As people are educated, they get a common perspective, a shared perspective, and they're more apt to understand and coordinate actions as they go forward. The third thing they do is when it hits the fan, how do we coordinate our operation and respond? How do we build processes and tools that can help operational response efforts and get business back and communities back to business quicker? The fourth thing is, how do we create faster decision support and information sharing? Not just normal information, but sensitive information that typically isn't shared between these two organizations. And a framework is needed to do that, so trusted information can be shared through trusted people. And the last thing is, then how do we continue to expand and develop solutions based on the last event or a series of events? So many times what happens is they look to the exercises and the events they respond to drive out the need for solutions. And as this goes by, this framework has expanded and developed 14 plus solutions over the last couple of years, and you'll get a chance to see that a little bit later. So how this comes together is through the All Hazards Consortium and its Fleet Response Working Group and other working groups. The industry and government have built this trust framework to provide these two scenario-based solution sets to its members. During Blue Sky Days, they do joint planning. States and industry plan together. Business continuity plans are validated against state plans. We do a combination of exercises where we do virtual exercises back and forth. So it allows us to expedite the information sharing process better. Joint education to help both government understand industry issues and industry understand government issues, so together they can work better in policy and planning and things like that. And then in the blue sky mode, we develop operational solutions, which are growing as we leverage other organizations, federal and commercial, into the pool of services that are available. Then during dark sky days, during disasters, very quickly, is the group shares operational information through a number of different processes, but this expedites information flow, it reduces risks, okay, and basically allows people to get back in business much quicker. We expedite logistics through a number of different processes. The Fleet Working Group from industry has worked together with government to expedite passage over the Canadian border, through toll and way stations, a lot of these issues that just seem to keep plaguing private sector for a long time. There's a whole list of what those are. And the last one is a growing set of disaster tools and resources. And this is leveraging federal investments in the millions of dollars to bring into this framework, if you will, to allow people to share information better, to allow people to get access to information and people better, and then building over time a disaster dashboard, if you will, that people can go to during either mode and get information they need for their business operational use case. And lastly, people don't have to go it alone. They can work together, and they don't have to be out here trying to figure out the silos. Private sector can be a part of this network, right, and start working with government in an operational way, and it really tends to promote unity of effort, education, and coordination as time goes by.